Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today I'm going to be continuing my 2019 reading wrap-up with books 51 through 60? Hopefully the title is correct. If you guys don't know, these are the videos where I do short miniature reviews of all the most recent books that I've read. They haven't been coming out as frequently as they were last year. I just have been in a bit of a personal funk. I guess this is also going to be a life update. Earlier this year, my grandfather passed away, and then one of our cats had to be put down, and then one of our dogs had to be put down, and I think that's just put me in a bit of a weird mood for the past however many months, and I haven't been reading a whole ton. I say that, and now I'm talking about the 51st through the 60th thing that I read, but I usually read a lot, and I just wasn't finding the motivation to read or make videos or do anything like that, and that's why my channel has had a lot less content on it recently. I've finally started to, have the motivation to get back on top of things and start reading again. So I also, in this time period, started to do a lot of rereads. In my last wrap-up, I talked about how I had reread the first 2 books of the Percy Jackson series. So you'll see that I had a lot more rereads in this wrap-up as well. And now, as of filming this, I'm just like so hungry to read all the books again. Things are looking better, and hopefully my content gets back up to speed. I used to post every Thursday and every Sunday, so hopefully I can get back to that. With that preamble out of the way, let's just get into the video. The 51st thing that I read in 2019 is Amon Volume 2. This is by Satsuki Yoshino. This is a slice of life manga. That was more difficult than it needed to be to say. Manga that follows a character who is a calligrapher. He, at the beginning of the first volume, kind of has a meltdown, and he goes off to an island to reset himself, to recenter himself, to work on his calligraphy and improve. But when he gets to the island, this little girl won't leave him alone, and he starts to develop all of these relationships with all the people that live on this island. And I've been enjoying it thus far. This volume is so funny. I was laughing out loud while I read this. I just really love how quirky all of the characters are in this, and how much they love each other and are invested in each other. There's one part that makes fun of Death Note, which I thought was so funny. If you're very protective over Death Note, maybe you wouldn't like that part, but I loved it. I thought it was so funny. It was so great. There's another part where he really wants a cat, and what happens with all of that is so funny. So I just had a blast while reading this, and I ended up giving this volume 5 stars. I am loving this series so far, so I'm definitely going to pick up the 3rd volume at some point, but I don't know when that will be. I do recommend this one if it at all sounds interesting to you. I then continued my reread of the Percy Jackson series and read The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. I did a book review, a non-spoiler book review for the entire series, so I'll leave that up in the card symbol if you want to check it out. In there, I go through some pros and cons of the series as a whole, and then I kind of talk about each book. There's one thing I forgot to say in that review, though, for The Titan's Curse, was that at the very beginning of the book, you're introduced to 2 characters, Bianca and Nico. They're siblings, and at the beginning of the book, Bianca ditches Nico so fast and so easily that it threw me off. I was like, wait, why? It does explain it later on, but I just forgot that. That really threw me out when I first read that. This just continues the Percy Jackson series. If you don't know, Percy Jackson follows a boy named Percy Jackson. He finds out that he is the son of a god, and then he has to train to protect himself, and there's a bunch of prophecies about him, and he has to basically save the world. I thoroughly enjoyed my reread of this series. It had been so long. I think it had been 10 years since I read this book, so I was loving it, and I gave all these 5 stars, or at least I left my rating at 5 stars. I think that this one is probably a 4-star book for me now, but I just love this series so much that nostalgia factor made me leave it at 5 stars. The Last Olympian is very battle heavy, and all it is a series of battles. It's self-aware about it, like it even talks about how this book is going to have just tons of battles in it, so I wasn't as invested in this one for some reason, but yes, Percy Jackson, love him so much. I do think that this played a role in getting me back into reading. Getting me excited to read more and read quicker. Does that make sense? So yes, very thankful that I read these, and it's November, so it's the month to be thankful. My last reread that I've done recently, I realized that I was rereading a little bit too much maybe, was The Alchemist by Michael Scott. This is the first book in the Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel series, which I read as a child. So it's been quite some time since I read this series, and I wanted to go back and experience it again. Percy Jackson is about Greek gods, I forgot to say that. And in this series, it has a lot of different mythologies all interwoven together, and I just remember really, really enjoying it. It follows two twins, Sophie and Josh. At the beginning of the book, they both have summer jobs. They're trying to save up money so that they can buy a car together. Josh works at a bookstore and Sophie is working at a coffee shop. Also, at the beginning of the book, Josh and Sophie get caught up in what is happening with all of these immortal beings. There is a lot of players involved. There are a lot of deities from different pantheons all fighting each other, and Sophie and Josh get pulled into that mess. There's elemental magic, and you use your own energy to fuel that change and being able to control fire or air or whatever. And when you do magic, your aura flares up and also has a scent to it. So you can tell who's done a spell or who's done whatever magic based off of smells and all the auras are different colors and everything like that. That doesn't sound cool, but I promise you I do really like the magic system in here. One of my favorite things about this book is that I do really love the interweaving of mythologies. I love when people come up with different interactions between different pantheons. I really liked seeing all of the different mythological beings in this book that we get to see. I do wish that there were more from different pantheons and everything like that. It does focus very heavily on Egyptian, Greek, Roman, and then Western folklore. I wish that there were more Eastern influences involved and South American and African, but there aren't. And I can't remember if there are in any of the sequels. Another pro for this is that it is just constant action. There's always something happening. There are always people chasing them from place to place, so they have to keep on their toes. And it was actually interesting because this book is a little bit older. They were talking about like a GPS device as being new, like a GPS in a car as being new, and that was kind of funny to me because they're so common now. I will say that I didn't really love this as much on this reread. I always preferred Sophie over Josh, but I didn't realize how annoying Josh is until I reread this. He is so annoying. He has so much going for him, and the moment that he's not the center of attention, he starts like throwing a temper tantrum and being so annoying. So I wasn't enjoying him in this at all. He is so angsty and frustrating, but I love Sophie, so it kind of counterbalances that. This is also very info dumpy, and I think that a part of that is when you do weave all of these different mythologies together, it almost forces the book to have info dumps so that the author can explain how they're interacting together and what mythologies they come from, so that the reader actually picks up on everything that's happening. Because I've read other books where they do weave mythologies together, and they all have info dumps when the mythologies are coming together, because the author has to change the mythologies a little bit, so he has to kind of explain what he's doing. So I don't really love the info dumps, but I love the mythology being woven together, so it's weird because they have to go together, but I wish that they weren't there. This book is also super repetitive about information. You get told the same things over and over and over again throughout the entire course of the novel, and I was like, okay, I get it. And one last thing that I wasn't loving was that Sophie and Josh throw down on their parents so much. Their parents are both professors, researchers, I'm not sure, but they are gone a lot and they're super busy. I don't know, Sophie and Josh just throw down on their parents so much, and I don't remember that from when I first read it, and it was kind of bothering me this time. So when I ended up finishing the book, I left my original rating on Goodreads because when I was, oh god, how old was I? I don't know. When I was whatever age I was when I first read this book, I really loved it and gave it 5 stars, but I think now it would be like a 3-star book for me. So I left my rating, but in my review I said what it would actually be current day me reading this. I'm still glad that I went back and reread it. I'm not sure if I'll continue my reread or focus on reading new books, so I don't know, but I did enjoy it. I made it seem like I really hate this book now, but I don't. After that, I read Amulet, book 8, which is called Supernova. This is a children's graphic novel series that follows 2 characters. At the beginning of the book, they are moving into their grandfather's house or something like that. Their dad has recently passed away, and then because they're at the house, they get sucked into a new world, and they have to save the world. I've really enjoyed this series so far. The art in here is gorgeous. There's some more of it. Like, it is so just pleasing to read because the artwork is so good. I will say that it's been a very long time since I read book 7, so it took me a while to get back into the story and remember who characters were and remember where characters were in their character arcs. So I actually had a difficult time reading this one. I should have just reread the 7th book and gotten myself back into the swing of things, but I didn't, and I just decided to carry on through this. But I am really enjoying this series. I can't really talk about the plot too much because it is book 8, but there are a lot of different creatures, a lot of different animals, a lot of magic. This world has a lot of magic that's based around these amulets, and the amulets can overwhelm the people that are using them. So some people end up evil, some people stay good. So it's a really fun graphic novel series, and I'm looking forward to reading the last book. I think the last book is book 9. Definitely recommend this one if you're looking for beautiful art and a fun story. After that, I asked people on Twitter to recommend me middle grade audiobooks because I just had a lot of time to listen to audiobooks because I drive 6 hours every week, so I can make it through a lot of audiobooks quickly. So I asked, and Sarah from Sarah Without an H suggested a bunch, and I think I read 2 of them. She recommended that I read Ella Enchanted, which I've never read before. That one is by Gail Carson Levine. If you guys don't know, they made a movie of this, but apparently people hate the movie because the book is much better. And I kind of agree. This story follows Ella. When Ella is a baby, a fairy comes and gives her a gift, but the gift that the fairy gives her is obedience. So basically, Ella has to be obedient all the time. Apparently, the fairy thought that was a gift. So anytime anyone gives her a command, she has to follow it no matter what. One of the things that I love about this story is that Ella really works against that. She really doesn't want to be obedient all the time. And yeah, sometimes she does want to do whatever things, and the people that care about her are very careful to phrase things in ways to not force her to do it, but I really love that she fights against this. And throughout the story, she's trying to find this fairy that gave her this gift to get the fairy to remove it. I think Ella is way cleverer in the books. She finds these workarounds all the time. She's able to fight against this obedience a little bit better in the book. I also like in the book that she's a lot younger. I don't know how old she is supposed to be in the movie, but she's a lot younger in the book. Ella goes off to this finishing school. That's totally not in the movie, and I thought that her at the finishing school was great. I hated Hattie in this so much more in the book than I did in the movie. In the movie, she's just kind of weird. In the book, she is so frustrating and annoying, and I really liked Ella going against Hattie and everything like that. I don't know, I just think that the book is much better than the movie now that I'm talking about it. I just really liked how strong Ella is and how she overcomes her obstacles, so definitely recommend this one. That was a great recommendation. Thank you, Sarah. I want to say that Sarah also recommended that I read Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World. This one is by Ashley Herring Blake. This one follows a girl named Ivy Aberdeen. At the beginning of the book, their family's home is destroyed in a tornado, so they have to gather anything that they can while they're trying to figure out where they're going to live. This is a very high-stress time for their family because they're trying to figure out where they're going to live and everything like that, but especially for Ivy because she is going through a lot of changes. Obviously, they just lost their home. She isn't as close with her older sister as she was before. They've been butting heads a lot. She also has lost her art book. She draws a lot, and in that notebook, she has drawn a lot of pictures of her with other girls, and she hasn't really processed everything. She's starting to discover her sexuality and everything like that. She is afraid that now that it's missing, that people will find out and that people will judge her for it. Then one day at school, one of her drawings from her notebook ends up in her locker with a note, and it just follows Ivy as she's processing everything about herself. She's figuring out everything with her family. She feels very lonely. She feels very isolated, and she wants her notebook back, and someone is hanging that over her head. I really enjoyed this. I didn't really know what to expect. I don't read a whole lot of books that are not fantasy, but I did really enjoy this story. I could really connect to the isolated feeling of Ivy where she's trying to process everything, and she has 2 baby brothers who have been taking a lot of their parents' time, so she's also lonely because of that. And I guess I could connect with that too. I was the baby of the family until I was 10, almost 10, and then my brother was born. So I could connect with Ivy a lot personally. I really liked seeing her go through everything and figure things out and start to, bridge some of those gaps with the people in her life. It's just a very sweet story, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. After that, I read Hoodoo by Ronald L. Smith. This one follows a little boy named Hoodoo in the 1930s living in Alabama. He's black, living in the South, and his family has a relationship, a knowledge of magic. At the beginning of the book, you find out that he has seen a stranger in the town, and the stranger has now become very threatening. He's after Hoodoo, and Hoodoo has to protect himself and the people that he loves. I did enjoy this story as well. I really liked Hoodoo. I thought that the vibe of this story was very, very cool. I liked the magic here and there. I liked learning about Hoodoo and his family. I liked learning what was going on with his father. This was in the 1930s in Alabama, so there is some tension, and by tension I mean just like racism. There's only like 1 day a week when they're allowed to go to this specific market, or maybe it's 1 day a month. The one thing that really was affecting my reading experience was that this book is very, very, very repetitive. Like, a character will say something to Hoodoo, and then Hoodoo just repeats it a million times. It is so frustrating, and it just repeats so much. Like, anytime someone says something, it's also repeated 3 or 4 times later, and I'm like, I get it. I remember it. It just happened a couple pages ago, so I don't think that we need to keep having this told to me over and over and over again. There's also, this book is also for younger people, so keep that in mind. But there are a lot of definitions in this book, and they're always followed by, if you didn't know. And I liked them at first, but they're so frequent that it really disrupts the plot of the story. I think that people compare those to A Series of Unfortunate Events because that book also has a lot of definitions in it, but I don't know. I just really was not enjoying how Hoodoo was defining things all the time and saying, if you didn't know. I was like, this is so frustrating. So the repetitiveness of this book really, really got to me. So I ended up giving it 3 stars because I did enjoy it, but it was so repetitive. It was like, man, if it wasn't so short, it would have taken me a very, very long time to read. I really liked Hoodoo. I liked his family, and I liked what happened in the story, but it was just so repetitive. And the 60th thing that I read in 2019 is Ice Wolves by Amy Kaufman. This is a middle grade story that follows Anders and Raina. They are twins, and they have been living in this city as street rats for most of their lives. They are war orphans, so their parents were presumably killed during this battle. They were at an orphanage, but they ran away, and now they're living on the street, and they've been fending for themselves. In this world, people are able to turn into different animals. The wolf pack protects this area, this country, and protects this city specifically. And the people that are able to turn into dragons are known to be awful and are enemies of the people of this city. The dragons and the wolves had been at war against each other, and the dragons are now hated. Every month or something like that, there's an opportunity for children on their 12th birthday, I believe, to get tested to see if they're able to turn into a wolf and join the wolf pack and go to this elite school where everything is taken care of for you, and you never have to worry about anything for the rest of your life because you have a job built in because you're gonna be in this wolf pack and protect everyone. You're going to receive all of the food and shelter and everything else that you need. Anders and Raina both end up taking the test, not because they want to, but they do end up taking it. They turn into different animals, and then the book starts from there. This book mainly follows only one of the siblings. It follows the one that turns into a wolf, and so you don't really follow the other one as much, but the one that we do follow, I was really enjoying that character's progression throughout the story. The character feels very lonely because they were living on the streets. They don't have a lot of human connection other than their sibling. So I do like that this character starts to grow in this story and starts to open themselves up to having friendships and relationships with other people other than just their sibling. I really loved in this one how casual sexual orientation and gender identity are. For instance, one of the characters that's a part of the pack goes by gender neutral pronouns, and no one misgenders them at all. The moment that the characters find out that they use they them pronouns, everyone uses they them pronouns for that character. There's also characters that have relationships with characters of the same sex, and it's not looked at as being weird or unusual. So I do really, really like that. But I do think that this novel slows down a lot after the excitement of the beginning of the novel, because the siblings turn into two different types of animals. One turns into a dragon, one turns into a wolf, and that's like, whoa, craziness. And then the novel slows down a lot because the character that turns into a wolf isn't in the greatest of positions to figure things out. So it's stagnant for a while, and then it starts to ramp up at the end. But I didn't love how slow the plot got in the middle. There were some moments in that middle slow section that were high tension and I was on the edge of my seat, but generally it was very slow and it brought down my enjoyment of this novel. I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars, which is a weird rating, I know, but I did really, really enjoy it, and I definitely will be reading the second book. I'm also impressed that I didn't spoil which sibling does which. So those are the next 10 things that I read in 2019. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below what you've been reading recently. Have you read any of the books that I have talked about in this video? If you have any audiobook recommendations for me, I'm always open to a good audiobook or a new favorite audiobook narrator. I really love Bonnie Turpin. Definitely recommend her narrations. And Steve West, he's another good one. Anything else you want me to know, leave it down below and I will talk to you guys next time.